What's going on, everyone? It's me, Johnny, with MM Arcade, and I'm here in Sydney, Australia, reporting on UFC 312. Dricus du Plessis against Sean Strickland, and of course, Zhang Weili against Tatiana Suarez. I just want to give my thoughts and my reactions to everything that's happened in the past day, from yesterday's media day to tonight's press conference. And I'm literally just back from that. If you watched the broadcast, I was there, I was a part of it. I was able to ask a question, which was as awesome as ever. It was the same energy from UFC Perth in last year. So I just want to give my thoughts and my reactions to everything, because as you would have seen, anytime Sean Strickland is involved in anything, it's unhinged. Shit is said. It's crazy. It's wild. And I just want to talk about my thoughts and reactions on all of that. Let's start off with the press conference, because that literally just happened. The energy in the room was actually insane. I thought that maybe, just maybe, that more and more people in Australia were coming around to Dricus, right? Because Dricus, he's a likable guy. He presents himself very well, especially in front of media. I thought that more and more people would be in his camp, supporting him here in Sydney. But as soon as Sean Strickland walked out, man, everybody was going off their nut, supporting him, cheering him. I could barely hear myself think in that room. It was actually insane. So many people are supporting Sean. They're in favor of him, just like we saw with his fight against Israel Adesanya as well, right? Like, he just has such a big fan base here. And that doesn't surprise me. It's more that every time Dricus spoke, everyone was booing him. And maybe they were just, having a bit of fun. It was the energy in the room, etc. But I thought a few more people would be in his favor. But when he did make some jokes and when he did clap back against Sean, he did get a few cheers and applauses in the crowd too. So that was good to see. Part of me thinks, though, that Dricus, he didn't look too, entertained by it all. He seemed to be more in his element with the press conference last year in Perth with Israel Adesanya, right? Like, he just had more things to say. I think, people were a little bit more in his favor. But with this time, because everyone was in Sean's camp, I felt like he didn't appreciate that or like that too much. Let me know what you think. I want to know how it came across, on the broadcast, on the camera. And did you hear how loud the bloody crowd was? Because honestly, I hope that came across the broadcast. It was actually insane in that room, right? And it started off crazy as ever. Sean saying his stuff about Dricus and his fighting style and whatever. As I mentioned, Dricus had some comments back and clap back a little bit. So that was fun to see, them two going at it. Ultimately, that's what we want to see. But also, I think we can see as well that these two guys, they fought for 25 minutes. They already fought before, so this is a rematch. They clearly respect each other. And Dricus has talked about this in the past week. There's a bit of a respect for each other as competitors, as fighters, as warriors, as two people that have shared the ring with each other and fought such a very, very close fight. Clearly, the two guys don't necessarily hate each other. There's not a personal beef there. Maybe like there was with Israel and Dricus, right? Maybe like there was with Sean and Israel. I don't think these two guys actually hate each other. But yeah, it was very, very interesting in that room. And as I mentioned, I got the opportunity to ask a question. I only had the opportunity to ask one question, so I had to make it count. And I didn't want to ask something that was super serious, like, what is it like fighting in Australia? Have you prepared for this fight? Everything that has been asked already. Everything was asked in the many in the many interviews that Dricus and Sean have had. Everything was asked in the media day. So I thought to myself, what's something fun that I can ask both of them to try and get a bit of response, but not do so in a leading way, right? Like what happened in the UFC Perth press conference last year with Izzy, that genuinely wasn't leading. I just happened to ask a question about betting odds, and then everything popped off, if you remember. This time, I was still trying to get a fun response, but be positive with it. My question was specifically...
So Dricus and Sean, a lot of crap has been talked, during this press conference, during the lead up. Fellas, I'm going to need you to say one nice thing about the other person. Sean, I don't want to hear any crap. I don't want to hear anything. Sean, we'll start with you. One nice thing about Dricus.
The crowd didn't like it. If you heard, they were booing when I asked that question because they just wanted to hear Sean rag on Dricus, of course. And I get that. That was fun. And again, it was the energy in the room. But I thought that was a fun question to ask to see what they would say. And then Sean just had his usual line about Dricus and the bus, etc. And at least Dricus had a bit more of a like a positive, I guess, response back to Dricus. So I thought it was a fun question. I only had the opportunity to ask one. And as I keep saying in these press conferences, you can see it on the broadcast, right? There's questions asked by certain media beforehand. So by the time it gets to someone like myself, that stands up and is able to ask questions and not be in that front row sitting down asking questions, like a lot of the questions have already been asked. A lot of the good questions, the questions that everyone expects to hear have already been asked. So you have to be a bit inventive and think on the fly. You can't come in with a set of pre-listed questions that you thought out, is all well thought out and everything. You can't do that because everything's going to be thrown out when someone asks the question that you've listed, or someone asks all the questions that you've listed, like what happened with me last year in UFC Perth. So I've learned a lot from my previous experience. So I knew, I just walked in there, I was like, you know what, I want to think about the question on the fly. And that's the one that I thought of. And I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. In the end, the crowd, ended up getting G'd up and loving it. So I thought it was fun. Let me know what you thought about it. But it was just cool, again, to be part of it like I was with UFC in Perth. That was more of a viral moment, let's say. This one's a little bit more stock standard, but it was still enjoyable. And then we have the media day from yesterday. By the time this goes up, it's probably over a day ago. But dude, that was crazy. Like from the moment Sean walked in, he was just saying stuff. He started off talking about Bryce Mitchell. And you would have seen that. He just went on and on and on. He kind of beckoned one of the journalists to ask him a more fun question. And that's when the question was asked about his mustache. And he was taking the piss out of himself with that as well. And then he just said so much stuff. I'm not going to, of course, rehash that here. It was a strange energy in the room, right? Like, I'm sure that there were some journalists in there that have been at a Sean Strickland media day and that knew what to expect. I didn't. The energy in the room, just like not knowing what to expect from him, like seeing him take questions in a completely different direction. No matter what was said, Sean took it down a path and said something, right? So it was like unexpected. I didn't know which way that it was going to go. And I asked a question of Dricus, of Jack Jenkins, of every fighter, right? But when it came for Sean, I didn't ask the question because I was like, I don't want to be roasted. I don't want to be subject to anything. I just want to see how this plays out. And it was just like, this is crazy, man. This is absolutely wild. Yes, typical Sean Strickland. Oh, man, it just making me funny thinking about it. Like it was a crazy, crazy media session. The one with Dricus was much more stock standard. I asked him a few questions about him and oval racing. He wants to be an oval racing driver when he retires from the UFC. I also asked him the question about what he thinks about all these top-ranked middleweight contenders, training with each other. Sean is literally here in Sydney training with Kaio. Rob, of course, was training with Israel a few weeks ago before his fight with Imavov. There are so many middleweights training with each other, and I asked him, Dricus, what do you think about this? Like, you want to train with them too? I'm sure that's something that Dana isn't exactly happy about. I don't think Dana is happy with middleweight contenders wanting to train with each other. We kind of saw a little bit of that with Merab Dvalishvili and Aljamain Sterling. If you remember, I don't think Dana was the biggest fan of them being friends and not wanting to fight with each other. And now there's all these middleweights, top 10 ranked middleweights, training with each other and seemingly being friends. I don't think Dana's the biggest fan of that because it makes it hard for him to make bloody matchups. It does. Let's be real here, right? Like now, there's no way Rob is going to be fighting Israel again. Maybe there was a possibility of that. But now for sure it's not happening because they're mates and they're training with each other. Now, do you really see Sean Strickland fighting Kaio Bahio because they're training? Absolutely not. It's just not going to be happening. So I asked him that question as well and one other one that I can't remember. So that was fun to be a part of. But yeah, man, even though this card is not, it doesn't have the star power that other UFC cards have. Even the card in Perth was immensely better, right? You had Dan Hooker fighting Mateusz Gamrot. That was absolutely insane. You had so many more ranked fighters on that card in comparison to this one. So yes, even though this card doesn't have the star power and it's kind of lacking from top to bottom, the energy here is still crazy. Like, people are absolutely loving being here. They're shaking Dricus's hand and Sean's hand. As I said, that press conference was so bloody loud. Everyone's just happy for people to be here. When Dana White walked on the stage, people went nuts. They went absolutely nuts. It was crazy to see. So even though again, the fights are a little bit lacking. I'm sure that the energy in the room when it comes to the fight on Sunday our time, Saturday American time, I'm sure it's still going to be pumping in there. I did have a look at the tickets, and there still seem to be a few tickets that aren't sold. We'll see what happens in the past day or so, because a lot of them might just be snapped up. I don't know. I remember with Perth, I think it was actually sold out. There were no tickets left at this same stage. So I don't know if they're going to be able to sell out like they have with previous UFC cards, of course. Maybe that star power is just a little bit too much when it comes to selling tickets. But let's see how they do. Let me know your thoughts about everything in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed my reactions and my coverage. I will try my best to do an immediate reactions to the fight card itself. However, because we have to wait, once the last fight takes place between Dricus and Sean, no matter who wins, not only do we have to wait, of course, for Dana to come out and do his talk and us be able to ask questions, and I'll be there, trust me. We usually have to wait a long time for the winner and maybe even the loser of the main event to come. Like if you remember with UFC Perth, it took ages for Dricus to show up. It took ages. We were there for like well over an hour after the fight ended to be able to see and speak with Dricus. So because of Dana, waiting for Dana and then waiting for the winner of this fight, and then I have a flight to take that night, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to create a video and upload it immediately. Maybe when I get back home, because I literally traveled here to Sydney to be a part of this. Maybe when I get back home at like midnight, I can record something. But let's see how it goes. Let me know your thoughts about everything. Thank you for watching this video. And until next time, this has been Johnny. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.